Let's speak to political analyst and commentator Calvin Dark. Calvin, what do you make of the announcements that we've seen today?
Well, there's never a boring day with Trump in the White House, that's for sure. I think a lot of the talk about, chaos and, this is so not traditional. I think that's true, but it actually isn't a big of a deal as it would have been with any other president. Because if we think about it, any other president who's in the middle of negotiations between Russia and Ukraine, Hamas, Israel, with Iran, and then the national security advisor being fired, that would have been big news. But the reality is Donald Trump doesn't listen to anyone. These are people around him that he fills in the positions to do what he says. So in that sense, I don't think anything's really going to change. I think the kind of palace intrigue is important because he couldn't just fire Mike Waltz because of the problem of loyalty. He doesn't want to fire Mike Waltz, who gave up his congressional seat, not because he has an affinity to Mike Waltz, but because he's going to need people in and around him with loyalty. And if they see that he's willing to sack someone just after a couple of months and not put them in another position, that's going to affect the loyalty he's going to expect going forward.
Yeah, and the sort of the bigger question for audiences right around the world is exactly alluding to a number of global crises. If those in high office in defence and national security in the US, are not secure in their positions, if there's going to be a degree of movement, if Marco Rubio is only there on a temporary basis, that obviously gives rise to the worry of how much coordination, how much stability can there be going forward? Does it give more opportunities for bad actors?
Well, yes, there isn't any coordination within the White House. We know that. Let's look at who's negotiating with Russia and with Iran, one of Donald Trump's real estate partners, former real estate buddies. And so in that sense, I think the world should realize that even when there are people in these positions, Donald Trump acts impulsively, and he makes decisions based on probably the last person in the room. So while on the surface, this may seem very unsettling, in reality, I don't think it's going to change much about what Donald Trump's going to do.
Marco Rubio is being named as the interim national security advisor. Will that give some continuity and stability, obviously, because there's obviously a very big overlap with the Secretary of State job. He was previously seen as a Russia hawk, but he's been very involved in the Russia-Ukraine talks and in the Middle East. So that does give a level of continuity in that field.
I think so. And I actually think the reason he did that was because Donald Trump doesn't want to have to deal with the search for a new national security advisor now. And there are a lot of references in Washington today to Kissinger, because Henry Kissinger has done this. It's not unprecedented. He was Secretary of State and National Security Advisor. Once again, I don't think that Donald Trump looks to these positions for advice. He looks to them to execute what he wants. So if Marco Rubio can be that and Secretary of State, it really doesn't change what Donald Trump is going to do.
Calvin Dark, thank you very much indeed for your time today.
Thank you.